Welcome back to The Social here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Harry Symeou, and the excellent, as always, Rory Jennings. We're going to turn our attentions to his club now. Chelsea take on Aston Villa this Sunday. Rory, this feels like a fixture that could have big implications in terms of the top four race.
Yes, of course. Of course, I'm really excited about it. I think that Villa are looking slightly vulnerable. There is an element of vulnerability to a Villa team that generally I think is excellent. You know, I rate Unai Emery incredibly highly. I know you and I have had our back and forths about Unai Emery. I am in the camp that he is a top-class manager, genuinely top-class. And I think that we are certainly capable of beating them. And if we do, it will be a statement of intent for our top four aspirations. I don't want to say it's must win, but it certainly must not lose. We can't be losing to Aston Villa because that will give them the momentum. So as long as we can maintain the status quo, we're currently in the top four. As long as we can finish this weekend, which is an intense weekend for us, within the top four framework, I see that as job done.
I make Chelsea clear favourites now to finish fourth. Based on what I've seen in the first 11, 12 games of the season, I think you've got so much going forward in sort of the likes of Cole Palmer and all the kind of supporting cast around him. I think that Enzo Maresca's got you playing, you know, his style of football. It seems to have clicked a lot quicker than I thought it would. He's finally found a midfield combination. I feel like Chelsea are on the up at the minute. And I worry for Aston Villa, I do. And it's not me trying to throw shade at Unai Emery. I know I've done that in the past as an Arsenal fan. But his teams do this. His teams go through these phases where they just look completely devoid of ideas and a little bit burnt out. And I know they've done really, really well in Europe so far, but it feels like the energy that they're expending in Europe is costing them when it comes to the Premier League. And that balance is always difficult to find.
Yeah, I do concede that a lot of what you said about Unai Emery is currently true. And I know that when you look at the league table, it's a very weird league table this season, but when you look at it, it's striking quite how low in the league they are. However, if they beat us, same points. Like, you know when you look at the league table, it's one of those weird situations this season where you look at it and you're like, God, they're miles off because of the amount of clubs in between, and they do look like they're miles off. But if they beat Chelsea, which I don't think they will, I think it would be huge for them to come to Stamford Bridge and win, considering the form that they've been in, considering the form that we are currently in. But if they do, and they beat us there last year, I remember Watkins scored, if they find a way to somehow beat us at Stamford Bridge, same points as us, and then all of a sudden, the conversation around top four, we're neck and neck, aren't we?
The narrative completely spins, doesn't it? Completely changes. I always think with Aston Villa, like last season, they got a lot of credit for what they achieved in Europe whilst fighting for a top four spot in the Premier League. And I think the level of the competition that they were in, the Europa Conference League, and you guys are in it now, so you see it as well. The level is so significantly weaker than what you have to face in the Champions League that it's easier to find that balance. Of course it is. And you can make heavy rotations and change players. And you look at Villa now having to do it in the Champions League. And yes, they're doing well, but the balance isn't there. And Unai Emery throughout his career has struggled with that balance.
But it takes time, doesn't it, as well? Like
to adjust.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the rigorous nature of Premier League football compared to the Conference League football. I mean, it's I think that every single time an English club is in that Conference League, and I don't say this from a position of pride, but I do believe that the English club should just win it. Like Chelsea have played a team.
Villa should have won it last year.
Villa should have won it. No, I completely agree. Failure that they didn't win it. West Ham won it the year before. Chelsea should win it this year. Nobody should stand between Chelsea and that trophy. Like, genuinely, I've been a football fan all my life. I've been fortunate enough to work in football for however long. We played a team I'd never heard of. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, that we're playing teams in European football that I've literally never heard of. So, of course we should be winning it. But Villa's now sort of war on multiple fronts. Champions League, Premier League. It's so arduous. It's so difficult. And culturally, the club, it takes time to learn how to get that right. You know, we've seen it at certain clubs. When Newcastle went into the Champions League, they were launched straight out of it. When Arsenal got back into the Champions League, they didn't really launch a serious campaign to win it. They just found their feet. When Man City eventually won it, yes, they got over the line. But it took years and years of failure in there. Lyon knocking them out, Tottenham knocking them out. So yes, it's going to be very difficult. It is going to be very difficult for Villa to keep it up on two fronts. But I do believe that they will get it right. I do believe that ultimately they'll get it right. But it's another reason why I'm so convinced Chelsea win the game. We're playing Villa in a week where they have had the distraction of European football. And I know Chelsea have had European action as well, obviously. But it's completely. Chelsea have a completely different team. We have an A and a B team. Like Dewsbury Hall will not feature against Villa. Obviously, he plays the full game against Heidenheim. So we're in a better position. We're in better form. We should be beating Villa, and I think if we do, it's the statement. I really do. I think beating Villa in what I consider to be because we're at home, we should be winning, right? I wouldn't necessarily cry at a draw, but we cannot lose. So we're going to learn a lot about who Chelsea are this season, but also who Aston Villa are. If the failings that you've pointed out regarding Aston Villa, if they do turn up at Stamford Bridge and win, you're slightly wrong.
Yeah, agreed. But I just think with... And this is the thing, Villa fans will get defensive when they hear me saying this, right? They'll say, he's just trying to have a go at us. I'm not. If you go back through history and you look at all the teams that Unai Emery has managed, when he's had a successful European campaign, he has never been able to match the expectations with a league campaign. There were times with Sevilla where he finished in really, really disappointing league positions. He won the Europa League, and I'm sure the fans would argue, who cares?
Yeah, best season ever.
It doesn't matter. We won the Europa League. But that's a common problem that Unai Emery's experienced.
The only case I would make for him, and I know this isn't the case at Aston Villa anymore, but at Villarreal, for example, you are totally allowed to finish outside of the top six and win a European Cup. It's the dream. It's historic. At Aston Villa, this is probably the first job, apart from obviously the Arsenal job, but this is the first job where multiple fronts of success are, and by success I mean top four finishes.
I think the PSG job was another one where it obviously didn't last very long, but that was another one where he was expected to live up to that on both fronts, and he couldn't do it. That's the thing with Unai Emery. And I know people talk about his incredible European record, and it is very, very impressive. But without being a snob or coming across like a snob, it's the second-tier European European competition.
Yes.
Ask him to now find that balance between competing in the hardest league in the world and doing it in Europe's premier competition. And I think over the course of the campaign, you're going to see them fall off a little bit. Now, you could argue that they overachieved last season, and so a fall-off is to be expected, and even a slight fall-off is probably still a very, very good season based on the standards.
The problem is, I don't know if I agree with that. As much as I think they're doing a remarkable things at Villa, I remember saying this and having this conversation about Newcastle. When they qualified for the Champions League?
Yeah.
I think that it then becomes a prerequisite of that season that you qualify for it again. There is no point in an anomaly foray into the Champions League. Like, when you get there, it's the land of milk and honey. It's so difficult to get there, and when you get there, you deserve nothing but praise. But what then happens once you get there, we kind of redefine what success means, and you have to get there again. Because if Aston Villa don't get there this year, if they don't, and look, they could be really lucky. If this ends up being 5 in the Champions League, they'll be fine, I think. But it almost makes it a pointless foray into the Champions League if it becomes that anomaly.
Yeah, it's because
Everton did it. Everton did it, and look.
To grow as a club and to go to that next level as a club, you have to be consistently in there. Yeah. And people say to me, and I had this conversation with somebody on X the other day, and they said to me, well, what's the point in qualifying if you're not going to win it? And the point is that if you keep qualifying, the financial reward will put you in a position where you can attract better players, where you don't have problems about PSR and you're worrying about spending this and spending that. Your club all of a sudden is in a much healthier position, and that creates the platform from which you can push on. Without that, you're just a flash in the pan. And then you end up going back to where you were. You want to build a status.
Yeah,
Villa need to do that.
Last season, Villa didn't have to qualify for the Champions League, and they did. This season, they have to qualify for the Champions League because that is how you grow. That is how you become consistently better. That is also, which Aston Villa will have dreams of doing this again, that's how you win it. You knock on the door. Like the reason that Chelsea won it in 2012, and when people go, you were very lucky in 2012, on some level we were. But the reason that we won it on 2012 was because of what happened in 2011 and 2010 and 2009. Like, we were in what? We were in 4 semi-finals in the previous 6 years to winning it. Because we kept qualifying and kept knocking on that door. You need to get there, don't you?
Absolutely, for sure. Just very quickly, Rory, prediction for this one. Chelsea taking on Villa on Sunday. How do you see it going?
I think we'll win the game. I do. I think it's a real test for us. I think it's really difficult. Villa have a point to prove at the moment. But I do think that we will get the job done.
I think so too. I make Chelsea favourites for this one.